What's this all about, Esther? Anything surprising?
Well, it was a Channel 5 investigation as to the state of the Sussex's finances. Now, we know they didn't move to a two-bedroom cottage somewhere in the middle of nowhere. They're living in quite a large mansion in Montecito.
I have red hair. I know struggle.
Oh, God. We're gonna have to move back in with your family.
I should let them know to send a plane for us.
No, we can fly commercial with Miles and... fuck it, have them send a plane.
You know, there's one thing left that Meghan could make money on, and that would be her tell-all book, but she'd have to plummet new depths. And if that's possible, after the twerking video, chums, to get that sort of money coming in.
Hey, can you two fucking keep it down?
Hey! You ever heard of a thing called privacy?
Yeah, nobody gives a shit. Will you two just shut up and go away?
The two idiots' business empire? Business empire? Do they have businesses that we don't know about? Are you talking about Meghan Markle's as ever scam brand?
Welcome back. If you thought this was just another royal scandal, think again. So here's the deal. This isn't just tabloid drama anymore. Meghan and Harry's financial empire is under serious scrutiny, and the questions being asked aren't just shady. They're federal. We're talking audits, offshore accounts, and rumors that legal teams are already prepping for the worst. If you thought this was just about PR and podcast, think again. Let's get into it. Let's start with what everyone's finally brave enough to ask out loud. How are Meghan and Harry actually making this much money? This isn't just Reddit speculation or some shady tabloid hit piece anymore. Real people, financial insiders, even former fans, they're all looking around and going, wait a second, something doesn't add up. Because if you rewind just a few years, they told a very different story. That now infamous Oprah interview painted a picture of two people who walked away from royalty with nothing. Harry said, clearly, that they were cut off. No inheritance, no royal stipends, no security budget.
Meghan Markle's podcast has ended its 8-episode run, and there are no plans to release a second season at this point. What a surprise. Riley Sullivan is a lifestyle reporter here at skynews.com.au, and he's always across the latest celebrity headlines.
Meghan claimed she had to call up old Hollywood contacts just to survive. It was all tears, trauma, and scraping by. Fast forward to now. And it's private jets, Montecito mansions, million-dollar security details, and head-to-toe designer wardrobes. Meghan's was stepping out like she's on a Dior campaign, and Harry's casually hopping on planes like he's still flying royal. So what changed? Let's be generous and say the Netflix deal brought in a chunk. Spotify added some padding. A memoir here, a speaking gig there. But even with all that, we're still looking at a financial lifestyle that screams 8 figures annually. And unless they invented a new cryptocurrency on the side, it doesn't make sense.
Look at this town. There's just something about it. Oh, darling, I think this might be the place. You really think so? It's so quiet and empty here. If we moved here, then people would think we're really serious about wanting to be normal.
Even more suspicious, the speed. Within months of leaving the royal family, they weren't just surviving, they were thriving. And not in a slow, build-your-brand kind of way. It was like someone flipped a switch, and suddenly they were everywhere. Netflix, Spotify, books, merchandise, media appearances, magazine covers. It was a whirlwind. But here's the thing. This kind of wealth explosion doesn't happen organically. Not that fast. Not without serious backing or serious maneuvering. And people are noticing. Financial experts, auditors, agencies. Because when the lifestyle doesn't match the origin story, when the numbers feel too smooth, too shiny, someone starts digging, and right now, that digging has already begun.
Where they all agree to agree that Meghan Markle is the most wonderful woman who ever drew breath, and in return for that, she agrees to talk to them. That seems to be the system.
Now here's where things shift from suspicious to serious. We're not just talking online rumors anymore. We're talking government eyes on the Sussex money trail. quiet reviews, cross-border audits. Multiple insiders are saying both US and UK financial agencies are actively looking into how this royal-adjacent empire is moving its money. And the red flags? They're everywhere. This isn't about whether Meghan and Harry are making money. It's about how that money is flowing, through which companies, across which borders, and into whose hands. We're hearing whispers about shell corporations, offshore accounts, murky tax filings, and income streams that don't match the public narrative. These aren't just shady vibes. These are audit triggers. Because when you're living like billionaires but claiming to be cut off, the IRS and HMRC don't care about your Netflix ratings. They care about numbers. And apparently, those numbers are now under the microscope. And it gets messier. Some of the Sussexes' income streams reportedly pass through a maze of trusts, foundations, and for-profit entities. That's the kind of corporate architecture people use when they're trying to make things look legal, while keeping the reality buried under a dozen layers of paperwork. No official charges, not yet, but legal teams are already on high alert. According to insiders, attorneys close to the Sussexes are quietly preparing for every possible scenario. Audits, subpoenas, even depositions if this thing blows up.
We hope and pray the final episode of a completely unsuccessful podcast series, Confessions of a Female Founder. This has been when she interviews various female tycoons. Usually they're her neighbors in Montecito.
And let's be real, this isn't about jealousy or media bias. This is about paper trails. And paper trails don't lie. They either prove your story or they tear it apart. Section 3. Let's talk about the brand. Because Meghan and Harry aren't just public figures anymore, they're a business model. And that business? It runs on victimhood. Every headline, every deal, every carefully timed interview has one thing in common: pain, packaged and sold. Harry's trauma, Meghan's isolation, the fall from royal grace, racism, betrayal, media bullying. It's all content now. From docuseries to podcasts to press tours, they've turned their personal tragedies into clickbait gold. But here's the problem. When your entire empire is built on being mistreated, the world starts asking, who's really profiting from the pain? At first, people ate it up, two underdogs taking on the crown. But now, the mood is shifting. Because when you're making millions off your truth, people want proof. They want transparency. And if the story doesn't match the bank statements, it's no longer just a PR issue.
We hope and pray the final episode of a completely unsuccessful podcast series, Confessions of a Female Founder. This has been when she interviews various female tycoons. Usually they're her neighbors in Montecito.
It's a legal one. And Meghan? Her evolution is the biggest red flag of all. Gone are the quiet charity visits and behind-the-scenes activism. Now it's whispered luxury brand collabs, lifestyle blogs, rumored makeup lines, a potential cooking show. It's giving goop, not goodwill. They told the world they were walking away from the spotlight to protect their peace. But instead, they built a spotlight factory. And now that factory needs constant fuel. More content, more exposure, more drama. Because when your entire livelihood depends on staying relevant, you can't afford to disappear. But here's the catch. When everything is monetized, your trauma, your marriage, your philanthropy, people stop seeing you as authentic. And investors, they hate that. They want clean brands, not controversy machines. So when your story starts to sound more scripted than sincere, that's when even your business partners start walking away.
Anyway, the final guest is someone called Sarah Blakely. She's the founder of Spanx, and that was an intimate apparel company that sold pants and leggings. She founded that in Atlanta in Georgia. Anyway, she sold out, made a lot of money.
This is where things start to cross a very dangerous line, because it's not just about fame anymore. It's about philanthropy. Or at least, that's what the Sussexes want you to believe. But behind the scenes, multiple charitable foundations tied to Meghan and Harry are reportedly being scrutinized, And not just by gossip sites, by regulatory agencies. No one's accusing them of outright fraud yet. But when you mix emotional storytelling with nonprofit money, every single dollar has to be accounted for. And here's the thing. When you're making heartfelt appeals to the public one day and launching lifestyle products the next, people start asking if the charity is legit or just another brand extension. It's a dangerous cocktail. Emotional manipulation mixed with brand strategy. One moment, Meghan's talking about motherhood and miscarriage. The next, she's teasing a makeup line. Harry's discussing mental health in a documentary, and then signing multi-million-dollar speaking deals. The line between purpose and profit has completely blurred, and now financial watchdogs are stepping in to untangle it. And let's not forget, charitable foundations are supposed to be airtight, transparent, squeaky clean. But insiders say some of the entities connected to the Sussexes are structured in very complicated ways, enough to raise eyebrows among legal experts who specialize in nonprofit law. The concern? That funds raised for causes may be getting redirected into private ventures.
It has been several months now since our beloved queen has died. All Canadians are finding it hard to go on. All Canadians, that is, except for our first guest, the prince and his wife. We want privacy! We want privacy!
It hasn't been proven, but even the possibility of that happening is enough to trigger investigations. And if it turns out those lines were crossed, if donations were used to bankroll personal business, that's not just unethical, that's criminal. So while their publicist spins a narrative of compassion and healing, auditors are asking real questions. Who's signing the checks? Where's the money going? And are Meghan and Harry really giving back, or just cashing in? At this point, it's no longer a question of if something's wrong, it's a question of when it all unravels. Because behind the curated Instagrams, glossy interviews, and authentic podcasts, there's something else brewing: panic. Sources close to the situation say lawyers are prepping for every possible scenario. We're talking tax audits, financial disclosures, public filings, and yes, subpoenas. If this escalates, and it's looking like it will, we're headed for full courtroom exposure. No more scripted documentaries. No more PR-managed sob stories. Just facts, dates, bank statements, paper trails. And here's what people keep forgetting. Paper trails don't care about your brand. They don't care how many books you sold or how many red carpets you walked. They tell the truth.
American Riviera Orchard, all of these other sort of projects that have come and gone. And in that, she's already sort of subtly moving on. She said, this was great, but, maybe there's talk of a second season. She's sort of retroactively making it seem like it was always going to be a one-off, and that wasn't true.
No. And if the financials don't match the narrative, this doesn't end in a headline. It ends in handcuffs. Because let's call it what it is. Meghan and Harry built an empire on the idea of transparency, of speaking their truth, of rising above the monarchy and doing things their way. But if their way turns out to be misrepresentation, financial manipulation, or worse, exploitation under the guise of charity, then this story stops being inspiring and starts being criminal. And fans, they're divided. Some still defend them, calling every move strategic, even revolutionary. But others are done, exhausted, tired of the constant victim narrative, the nonstop cash grabs, and the carefully staged authenticity that now feels more like marketing than real life. So what's the end game? Are they trying to become the next billion-dollar brand? Are they trying to outpace a financial firestorm they can't control? Or are they just riding the wave until it crashes? One thing is certain, if this goes legal, there's no turning back. No more edits, no more interviews, just lawyers, ledgers, and the cold, hard truth.
I think on that alone, there's no way this will come back because it hasn't performed well, in terms of advertising or any types of revenue you can glean from the podcast. It really has failed on that front. Also, there was a very interesting article that came out in a business publication called Fast Company. Never really heard of it, right?
Behind every headline and glossy photo, there's one brutal truth no one on Team Sussex wants to admit. The brand is cracking. What once felt like a bold rebrand now feels like a desperate scramble to stay relevant. And the more they push, the more obvious it becomes. This isn't a legacy. It's a leaky business plan. Just look at the pattern. Every few weeks, there's a new announcement. A podcast reboot, a lifestyle blog, a rumored makeup line, a mystery documentary, a wellness venture that no one asked for. It's like they're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, hoping one of these projects will finally stabilize the empire they built on trauma and tabloid heat. But here's the catch. Audiences are tuning out. What used to feel fresh now feels forced. What used to spark sympathy now triggers skepticism. Even former supporters are quietly backing away, and according to insiders, so are some of their brand partners, terrified of getting dragged into a financial scandal wrapped in royal glitter. And Harry? His credibility has taken hits too. Missed timelines in his memoir, disputed claims in interviews, awkward press moments that raise more questions than answers. And the royal silence from his own family? That silence is deafening and strategic. Because if this house of cards collapses, no one wants to be standing too close.
My Instagram-loving wife has always wanted her privacy! And you know what else? To hell with Canada! We are leaving! We'll go find some quiet place where we can be normal people! Come on, wife! We want privacy! We want privacy! We want privacy!
What we're watching isn't just a public image under pressure. It's a personal empire held together by PR duct tape, and the seams are showing. Fame is a currency, but it loses value fast when people stop buying what you're selling. And if the financial investigators find anything at all, anything that suggests manipulation, deceit, or even sloppy bookkeeping, that empire won't just fall, it'll implode. Here's the twist no one saw coming. Meghan and Harry aren't just celebrities now. They're liabilities to brands, to investors, even, some say, to the very institutions that once defended them. What started as a fairy tale rebellion has turned into a high-risk media experiment. And the cracks aren't just visible, they're expanding. Think about it. The very thing that made them marketable, their royal connection, is now the anchor pulling them down. Because when you base your brand on exposing an institution, eventually the spotlight flips. And now, that spotlight is squarely on them. And make no mistake, the powerful people watching this unfold, they're not emotional about it. They care about numbers, risk, optics. If Meghan and Harry become too messy, too unpredictable, or too exposed, they'll be quietly dropped. Not with scandal, not with drama, just a silent pull of funding, opportunities, and support. The Hollywood machine doesn't do loyalty. It does liability management. Insiders are already whispering about contracts being reevaluated.
Quote, as a black woman, it's been infuriating to watch how Meghan has been treated, not just because racism hurts, but also because there was the sense that we weren't allowed to even enjoy the fairy tale. The prince in this story didn't slay dragons. He instead had to take on British tabloids in a society where class supposedly trumps race, even as racism clearly remains an issue.
PR teams stepping back, and meetings that were once filled with excitement, now filled with legal disclaimers. Because if this thing goes legal, if the investigators drop receipts, no one wants their name on the same page. And let's be honest, when you start out as the world's most famous couple and end up flagged on an accountant's desk, that's not just a fall from grace. It's a full-blown brand collapse. Meghan and Harry aren't just fighting public opinion anymore. They're fighting time, money, and a system that's getting ready to cash them out. And that's where we are. The story they sold of struggle, independence, and truth is starting to collapse under the weight of the one thing they can't control: evidence. The deals are drying up, the scrutiny is real. And the investigators? They're not chasing headlines, they're following paper trails. This isn't just a PR crisis anymore. It's a high-stakes game of exposure. And if even a fraction of what's being whispered turns out to be true, Meghan and Harry won't be calling their publicist. They'll be calling their lawyers. No spin, no sympathy, just facts. And when the facts drop, they hit harder than any scandal ever could.